All right. Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to the gShift Acquisio webinar, 5 Top SEO and PPC Trends. My name is Krista, and I'm one of the presenters here today. The other presenter on the line is Chris Doran from Acquisio. And thanks for taking time out of your busy day. I know we're all super busy. Running businesses, running marketing departments. So we hope you walk away today having learned something new about the industry, about SEO, about PPC, something that will contribute positively to your organization's overall digital marketing success. We've had a pretty amazing response rate to this webinar. This is the second one that we've done. We did the first one yesterday. And overall, about 700 people have signed up for the webinar, so it's pretty impressive. And I think it's because we really hit on a nerve with the content that's being presented. When Acquisio and gShift first started talking about doing this webinar last quarter, we thought, well, gShift could do 10 trends about SEO, and Acquisio could do 10 trends about PPC. Well, it turns out Chris and I have a lot to say about this subject matter, and we had to carve it down to just 5, and we're sharing the 5 trends, and it takes a lot to get through the content. So with that, I will stop blabbing and let's get on with it. And so for those who don't know who I am, I'm Krista. I'm the co-founder and CEO here at gShift. And gShift is a web presence analytics platform for both agencies and brands. And our DNA over here at gShift is very much SEO, very much social, and very much content. And as I mentioned on the call here today as well is Acquisio's VP of Marketing, Chris Doran, and I'll hand it over to him to introduce himself and to officially kick us off. Over to you, Chris.
Thanks, Krista. So as Krista said, I'm the VP of Marketing at Acquisio. I've been in this industry for about 15 years. The bulk of that, about 8 years, was spent at Microsoft working on the Bing Ads, or what was formerly known as Ad Center platform. And at Acquisio, I manage the marketing department. We're focused on offering a solution mainly to manage your paid search advertising. So overall, what we're going to talk about today were 5 trends. As Krista mentioned, we really had to narrow it down, and these were the 5 that we felt really resonated and kind of were the most important to cover. So the first thing we're going to talk about is mobile. People have been talking about it for years. We really feel like mobile is going to go mainstream this year. Then we'll transition and talk a little bit about the changes in search behavior and the importance of keyword selection and what it means to both SEO and PPC. Then we'll move into talking a little bit about marketing technology automation, the importance there, something near and dear to our hearts. We'll talk about native ads, and then we'll kind of close out with video ads and vlogs. A couple of housekeeping notes. So feel free, ask your questions at any time. Put them in the chat window. We're going to tally up all the questions, and then we'll answer them at the end. The webinar is being recorded, and it will be made available via email afterwards, as well as we'll share all the slides via email. And then one final plug here. If you find anything interesting, some interesting facts or anything that we say, feel free to tweet it out and use the hashtag SEO PPC. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Krista. She's going to talk a little bit about, kind of lay the foundation of the trends and kind of the shifts in the industry.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. All right, so I wanted to set the stage really with some 2015 industry trends, some insights, and some data. And so one of the most significant trends we are seeing here at gShift is that the lines are continuing to blur between the 3 traditional pillars of digital marketing, those being paid, owned, and earned. And we started to really see this last year, and the trend is continuing to be very strong. And at the center of these 3 traditional pillars is content. And so that strong, consistent content marketing strategy that is essentially being promoted via paid techniques such as ads, owned techniques such as your own website, and earned techniques such as SEO, social, and email. It's when all of these tactics come together and are executed in an integrated way with relevant content that's written for your audience, that's delivered with the right technologies, that the highest visibility and ROI is experienced. So you can't just do these things in silos anymore. You really need to take an integrated approach. And I know we're all passionate digital marketers here on the call today, so you should be excited. I mean, I was excited when I saw some of these industry stats, primarily from Gartner and their digital marketing spend report, that digital marketing budgets will increase by 8% in 2015. So that's good news for agencies, for sure, and brands. That companies spend about 10% or 10.2% of overall revenue on marketing, marketing proper, and that the digital marketing budgets overall represent about 25% of the overall marketing budget. So those are some good numbers to know, you know, as you're setting your budgets for 2015 and relaying that to the boss, or if you're an agency and communicating this to your clients. Those are just great numbers. And then Forrester's U.S. digital marketing forecast has a lot of great things to say about search marketing, and they put SEO and paid search together and call it search marketing. And it continues to be one of the largest line items in a digital marketing budget. And so that's really good for the SEO and the PPC business. And it also has one of the highest compounded annual growth rates from 2015 to 2019. So search marketing is not going away, and investments done in it will continue to pay off. And so actually that leads us to our first poll question. And I think we forgot to mention poll questions when we were doing the introduction. We have 3 poll questions for you today, and we'll be publishing those poll questions at the end of the session here. And so the first poll question that we would like you to participate in is, what are your budget plans for search marketing efforts in 2015? Will you be increasing your search marketing budgets? Will you be decreasing, or will they be staying the same? So if you could just go ahead and answer that. It just takes a couple of seconds, and we see some results coming in now. And as I mentioned, we'll be sharing these at the end of the webinar here today. And we did that yesterday, and it was pretty fun to see the results. So we'll just let that run a couple seconds longer, and I think that that's good. All right, thanks for that. I have some other, where'd my cursor go? There we go. I love the Adobe eConsultancy reports that come out every year, and my next 2 slides are from that digital trends report. And so Adobe eConsultancy, they go out every year and they interview about 6,000 business professionals that are involved in digital marketing. And one of the questions that they asked in 2014 that they revisited in 2015, which I thought was pretty clever, is, which one area is the single most exciting opportunity for your organization in 2014? And then they asked that same question for 2015. And I just thought it was interesting that the actual results for content marketing exceeded expectations in terms of exciting opportunities. Mobile fell a little bit short from predicted to actual year over year. But both social and also video exceeded and surpassed expectations. So I just thought that was interesting, how the actual and predicted turned out to be. And then one of the things that I'm pretty passionate about when it comes to digital marketing is experimentation. And I think I encourage all of you to set aside a little bit of your budget. And I know budgets are sometimes pretty small, but set aside some of your budget for experimentation. And so in the Adobe eConsultancy report, they asked the 6,000 participants, in which areas are you going to be experimenting most heavily in 2015? And this word cloud is the result of all of the answers. And this word cloud, it was interesting when I discovered it a couple of weeks ago. I thought, well, this is exactly what we're talking about in this presentation. So I think that all of the trends are very much of interest to everybody on the call. And so, you know, with that, I'm going to talk about our first trend, which is mobile. And so we believe that mobile has gone mainstream. And in doing some research, I came across the stat, and I don't know where I was on October the 7th when this happened, but I know where I was. I was on vacation and I was offline and I missed the news. But apparently on October the 7th, 2014, the number of devices in the world equaled the number of people in the world. So that number is 7.2 billion. And so the number of devices is now outpacing the number of people, and they're saying by 2018, we're on track to hit 10 billion devices. So mobile has officially gone mainstream. And then I found this, and I thought it was sort of funny in my strange sense of humor way. I'm a big fan of Nikola Tesla. He was a pretty strong mind, and he said this in 1909, so 106 years ago. He called it. He said, it will soon be possible to transmit wireless messages around the world so simply that any individual can carry and own his own apparatus. So Nikola Tesla called it 106 years ago, and mobile has officially gone mainstream. So I thought that was a pretty interesting little tidbit. And so what does mobile mean for SEO? What does this all mean for your SEO strategy? And it means that really you need to think about the fact that everyone is carrying around instant access to your brand. Anytime, anywhere, they can attempt to search for your brand. And as digital marketers, I think there's an opportunity to think about what that means. So think about, mobile SEO, mobile content marketing. Think about the differences in discoverability of brand content on a mobile device compared to a desktop, because it is different. Think about understanding those differences through data. If you're an agency, think about the service opportunities that exist. If you go to your client and say, hey, I think we really ought to think about mobile SEO and the opportunities that exist around that. And then for brands, you really ought to understand if you're being competitive in being discovered on a mobile device compared to a desktop. And so there's a couple of truths that I want to make sure we're driving home, and that is, truth number one, content, we know, is now the cornerstone of SEO. That's just a fact. Truth number two, your brand and your content are definitely discovered differently when your prospect searches for you from a desktop device compared to a mobile device. And number three, you're likely unaware of what those differences are. And so one of my passions is data. And data drives understanding and content discoverability from mobile, local, and global SEO and content marketing strategies. And I have a bit of an example here to show what those differences are. And so you need to think about, this is an example from a client in Mexico, and you can set up data so that you can collect the data and understand those differences in discoverability. And so here is an example of how the client is being discovered. This is actually gShift's web presence and how it's discovered in Mexico. So when a person in Mexico searches from a desktop, okay, and you can see certain keywords that have certain rankings for a certain piece of content, and then the next slide shows the differences from Mexico City when somebody is in Mexico City searching from a mobile device. And so same keywords, but different rankings, okay? And which means there's different competitors. The likelihood of somebody clicking on it lessens because it doesn't have as high of a rank. So just understanding what those differences are from a digital marketing perspective is really, really important, is the message there. And until you have the data, you really can't understand what's going on. And so with that, I'm going to hand things over to Chris, who's going to talk about mobile from a PPC perspective. So over to you, Chris.
Thanks, Krista. So, going through this process and working with Krista, and I learned a lot from her. And one of the things she mentioned that I really latched onto was discoverability. And I think that's a key term that I would use not only in SEO, but PPC. So as we look at the PPC market, just to kind of go over some facts that I found, number one that jumped out to me is on average, users look at their phones 150 times a day. Of that, Google represents about 25% of all non-app visits, and I'm actually seeing stats where that number might be growing a little bit. And then, as we know, with their Google Now and their app searches and push notifications, they're actually getting into apps. But when you look at just Google's search results, you see that their click-through rates are growing, and even on Bing ads with the Yahoo Bing network, those are growing year over year. So the key message here really is that we're continuing to see growth of the mobile market, the mobile marketplace, the number of clicks, and the spending, to the point that both of the major platforms, both AdWords and Bing ads, are now automatically pushing mobile. There's no distinction between the PC or mobile campaigns, and obviously there are multiple reasons why they would do that, but it just shows and further iterates the importance really of mobile. So next slide. So when you think about the advertising aspects of it, and I love the way Krista illustrated it, and I think on the advertising side, you look at it too, what's different? And it's really mobile users and their intent, right? When you're on a mobile device, usually you're looking for an immediate need. If you're not just browsing, to pass the time by, you're searching for something and you want that now. Usually, that's, for something local to you or your price comparing. And of that, a lot of studies have shown that mobile users tend to be picky. What that means is, you're usually paying for amount of data per month. If you go over that data, you're charged by a certain level, whether it's a byte, a bit, a megabit, whatever it is. And so you want to make sure that you're clicking on the right link, whether it's an ad or an organic search result. And so they tend to scroll the entire page. They look at the entire page. They really examine an ad, and they leverage that sort of streamlined experience in mobile to understand what is the right and best link for them to click on. So all of this really comes together and really focuses on what should we do from PPC with mobile. So next slide. And when you think of it, you really need to think of, as Chris was saying, discoverability, but beyond that. I would love to look at another poll question too, is how many people are really segmenting their traffic to understand your mobile performance? Now, from what I've seen, we did a survey of agencies earlier in the year. Not a lot of people understand the differences. And when you look at it, in the next year, there's a $7.1 billion opportunity for mobile ad spend. And so really what you want to do is take advantage of that opportunity. Optimize your site for mobile. We know that Google has said they're really looking at that, and they're considering that in rankings. You also want to streamline that experience beyond it so that you can convert a user. Streamline, making sure that your forms have one CTA or call to action, and that they're optimized where you're not giving them a list of fields to fill in. It's very simple and straightforward. Leverage mobile tools like call tracking, where you can understand what campaigns they're coming from. You can even get call tracking that records the conversations and really can engage and get more data to make decisions. And just build a process behind mobile to really take advantage of the entire end-to-end process. So next slide. So as we transition out of mobile, I think it really kind of focuses in and really helps us to understand that term discoverability that Krista mentioned when we talk about our next trend. So I'm going to turn it over to her, and she's going to talk a little bit about keyword selection.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, so the trend number 2 really follows on and builds on trend number 1, and search behavior impacting keyword selection. And my next slide, if I can get to it. Awesome. This is a word cloud that was part of SEMPO's State of Search Marketing 2014. And if you don't know about SEMPO, I always give SEMPO a plug. I'm on the International Board of Directors of SEMPO. Acquisio is part of SEMPO, and it's a search engine marketing professionals organization. It's a pretty decent organization that puts out lots of educational material and studies. And so They asked digital marketers last year, what's the most significant opportunity that you see for SEO? And this is the word cloud that came back, keywords and content. And so the reality is, right, the content's the core of SEO. And as digital marketers, though, we need to understand the behavior of a searcher and how that impacts keyword research, how it impacts the discoverability of content. And there's a real opportunity to do that. And so we all know what this is, right? This is where a searcher goes to type in their keyword. I mean, this is not rocket science. We know what this is. But what is this, right? And you now have the opportunity to say a search. And because of this, there's a behavioral change with the searcher that we can take advantage of from a digital marketing perspective. And I have an example to show how the behavior changes across text versus voice and desktop versus mobile, okay? And so this is a standard search. This is somebody looking for a flower store in Honolulu, and this is a textual search that they've typed into the Google search box, and it returns a set of results that you can see there, right? Okay, that's not rocket science, Krista, but what happens when somebody actually says a search, right? And when you say a search, your behavior is most likely to change. So yeah, with a text search, I'm going to say flower store Honolulu. But when I say a search, it's much more conversational. It's more like I'm looking for a flower store in Honolulu. Or think about how your behavior changes when you do a voice search on your mobile device. The keyword is different, and as a result, the search engine results are different. And I'll just flip back. They're not vastly different, but they are definitely different. And so you need to take a step back and understand, well, what is the difference in discoverability in a voice search versus a textual search, and how does that change the keyword selection and the keyword research and the keywords that you're optimizing your content for? And there's an opportunity to really expand the keywords that you're optimizing that content for from, it used to be you would just optimize for flower store. Now it's flower store Honolulu. Now it's I'm looking for a flower store in Honolulu. So really give some thought to the keyword selection, taking into consideration the behavioral changes on a desktop versus a mobile device, text search versus voice search. And I think there's a really big opportunity for agencies to go to their clients to say, hey, I think we ought to take a look at this and understand the behavioral changes and how those keywords are expanding. As well as I think there's a competitive opportunity for brands to really look at this. And, I don't think a lot of people are really paying attention to this. So if you do as a brand, you're likely going to win in search a whole lot better. And so obviously Google knows that this is a trend, and so they went to market with North Star Research and published some results back in October of 2014, so just last quarter. So they went out and they surveyed 1,400 Americans across all age groups, and the results are pretty compelling. They concluded that everyone across all age groups are using voice search. It doesn't get any clearer than that. So, and more than half of teens are using voice search on a daily basis. And yes, even adults are talking into their phones every single day. So we really need to consider it in our digital marketing strategies and our keyword selection. And so with that, I'll pass it over to you, Chris, for your take on it from a PPC perspective.
Okay, thanks, Krista. So, the inner nerd in me really gets excited and geeks out on this area. I think for years we've been talking about search intent and audience, and as Krista mentioned, the emergence of voice search, also the emergence of apps where you can scan a barcode in a store and price compare, what is it on Amazon versus here at the store. So the input of the way people are searching is changing, and ultimately it's making the challenge for digital marketers much different, but in a good way. I think when you think about the way that search changes, the signals that people are giving us and the data behind that is really empowering advertisers to be able to understand the intent and use those signals in a different way. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it changes fundamentally how we quote unquote target. I'm doing air quotes, no one can really see me here. And so we'll go to the next slide. And when we talk about targeting, whoops, too far, there we go. All right, when we talk about targeting, really, we know that publishers are evolving. We look at Google, you look at Bing Ads, and both AdWords and Bing Ads have PLAs and shopping campaigns, and they've evolved the way that you are targeting retail products to users. You're understanding their intent a little bit better. Most people now can enter in a product code. The other day I needed to repair my refrigerator. I was able to use an app, scan the code inside the refrigerator, and get a list of stores that sold that part. So ultimately, product feeds, new ad formats, they're changing the way that we can target the audience, and ultimately the behavior in front of that the end user has is really changing everything. So keywords, as we initially thought of it, is not necessarily the central targeting method for paid advertising. It's really taking the signals and all the data beyond that, the keywords, the actions, whether it's gestures or voice or whatever it may be, and understanding what someone's trying to achieve to ultimately then target with that advertising. So as we talk about the changes in search, and the complexity, how it's growing, I think it's a good transition to our next trend. I'm going to turn it over to Krista to talk about marketing technology, automation, how it's blending and how it's maturing. Actually, I missed the second poll question here. So real quick, we'll just ask, basically, are you currently incorporating mobile in your PPC or SEO strategy? So I had mentioned earlier, and funny enough, we'll give everyone a few seconds. Some people said no yesterday, which I was 6% of the respondents said no, and I was really surprised, and I had wished I could ask each one of them why they weren't doing it. So we'll have a few more seconds to see how it's trending, and I'll turn it over to Krista.
Awesome, thanks, Chris. And we're still seeing some numbers come in, and they're quite interesting numbers. We can't wait to show them to you at the end.
I'm wondering to see if no one says no again.
These are good stuff. All right, well, we got a good data set there, so we'll show those at the end, and we'll move on to the third trend. And we wanted to talk about marketing technology automation and how it's blending and maturing. And this has some positive and negative aspects to it, and it's really quite. I want to show you this next graphic, and don't get too dizzy and fall off your chair. Actually, every time I look at this, I go a little bit dizzy. This is the 2015 edition of the Marketing Technology Landscape, and it's put out every year by Scott Binker over at chiefmartech.com, and he works hard at putting this together. And one of the amazing trends about this for this year is that there are 1,876 different marketing technology vendors across 43 categories, and that's double over 2014. And so I look at this. Oh, and by the way, there's gShift and there's Acquisio. So yeah, we are part of the ecosystem. And so I look at this and I sort of feel sorry for everybody on the call, whether you're an agency or a brand, because you guys have to navigate through all of this innovation and technology and pick stuff that's going to help with your PPC and SEO efforts for your clients or for yourselves. And that's got to be really challenging. But you have to keep in mind that every vendor who's on here is actually trying to help marketers do digital marketing more effectively. And that's a big challenge. And I think that there's still a lot of innovation to come. And so what really does this trend mean for you and your life as a digital marketer? You know, there's still a lot of innovation that needs to be done. So although things are blending and maturing and digital marketers are getting smarter and platforms are becoming more intelligent, there's still a lot of work to do. And you'll see a lot of innovation still come to the table throughout 2015 and beyond. One of the interesting things about this space in general, whether it's SEO or PPC or email marketing or lead nurturing systems, is that not one vendor owns more than 4% of their category market share. And that's really quite incredible. The marketing technologists, you know, call it Acquisio and call it gShift, we understand how these things need to fit together for a digital marketer to be more productive, but it's really difficult to make them live together. So consolidation will happen, it has to happen, but it's going to take a while still for it to happen. So digital marketers need to be patient as the technologists continue to innovate, but consolidation will happen. And you know, of the 1,897 tools that measure, that analyze, that help you report on, and we do indeed, we believe that they do help you do these things more productively. One of the big issues that is still a trend is that digital marketers really grapple with and struggle with ROI. And so if you look at this graph, and this is from the Adobe eConsultancy report that was published just last quarter for 2015, the bulk of digital marketers still completely struggle with proving ROI of their digital marketing efforts. We're really, and just at the bottom, the last two rows, return on digital ad spend, return on investments from digital marketing programs, really only 12 to 13% of marketers are confident that they're proving ROI of their digital marketing investments digital marketing investments and efforts. And so I think that this is getting better, but I think there's still a long way to go at proving ROI, as I'm sure that you guys live with every day. And so the next poll question that we have, we want to ask you, how are you currently measuring your digital marketing performance? Is it through traffic and clicks? Is it through leads and conversions? Is it through revenue and sales? Or is it that you're not currently measuring your ROI in any way, shape, or form? So if you could just take a couple of seconds and answer that question for us, and we'll publish that at the end of the session as well. And we see some numbers coming in. Good stuff. All right. So we'll close that off. Thank you for taking the time to answer that. And we're going to move on to our fourth trend, which is native ads for PPC and SEO. And I'm going to hand it over to Chris, who'll kick it off with the PPC portion.
Thanks, Krista. So we'll go to the next slide and just sit for a second and take a look. You can clearly see there are image ads, there are native ads, included. There are images, they're both on a mobile and a PC. So what are native ads? I think when Krista and I were talking about this section, we wanted to make sure that everyone was on the same page about what native ads are. So when we think about it, I went to a couple of sites and got a definition of native ads. And while I won't read it, I mean, native ads really are just simply any ad that appears within content or editorial. So basically words or the experience of the website surround the ad. The two key areas to really focus on with native ads are form and function. They need to match the experience of the website. The form, they need to match the design, and function, they need to appear consistent and behave consistent with the native user experience of the website you're on. Native ads are most commonly incorporated on mobile in news feeds, or on PCs, you typically see them on news sites or entertainment sites, and they're built into the experience. And the growing sector of native ads are videos. They're not the videos that play automatically. They're videos that you actually have to click and engage in. And, you know, basically the rise of native ads are really coming from this disappointment from advertisers. So we'll go to the next slide and talk a little bit about that. So first of all, native ads aren't new. So a lot of people probably don't realize that native ads, before the big buzz that started this year, were started about 10 years ago by Amazon and Google. And anyone that's shopped on Amazon has seen recommended products or sponsored products that look similar to their product feed. You click on it and it takes you to a third-party site. Here you can see I was shopping for a rocking horse for my son, and this was a list of sponsored products that appear just like the Amazon products that are sold by a different vendor. And they're not Amazon certified vendors, and sometimes they'll actually take you to a site. This has been really successful for them, and I think it's an experience that people started to take on. And so with the frustration out of existing image and video ads, we've seen kind of a growth and a spike. And if you look at this eMarketer chart, you'll see that from 2012 just to what's projected this year, there's a significant amount of growth in just spending on native ads. And really there's an opportunity here this year in the billions of dollars to take advantage of the experience and the opportunity. So we'll go to the next slide. And really the message is the time is now, right? For publishers, they realize that having images, video, text, whatever it may be, integrated into the experience in their site provides an opportunity to help them monetize it. On the flip side, from an advertiser perspective, it really gives you a good opportunity to get in front of your prospective customers with an experience that is not obtrusive and really kind of mirrors kind of what they're going through. You can use signals from the content on their site to tailor the message to them. So whether it's on a mobile or a PC, we're seeing that the adoption is producing results and a good ROI. And ultimately, if it's really kind of showing a significant catalyst for advertisers in telling their story across channels, across devices, and really you can tell that consistent message. So we'll go to the next slide. Ultimately, with any new technology, anything that has a big buzz, a pivot point always comes. So I got this image off the internet. It's a town in Japan, and I think it illustrates the risk with any type of native ad, whether you're a publisher or an advertiser. Here, the ads are taken away from the landscape. When you look across the city, all you see are ads. It dominates your view. And while maybe something we're used to in large cities, On a web experience, we don't want that to happen, because that ultimately can take away from the experience, and it's counter of what native ads are and what brings their value. Even today, there's debate on if native ads are tricky or they're frauding people because they believe they're part of the content. They believe it's part of the news stream or it's part of the website, and they don't clearly say that they're advertising. So there's always going to be a pivot point, and we need to be responsible as advertisers to make sure that we provide ads that integrate seamlessly into the experience, or ultimately you're not going to see the right performance. You're not going to see the ROI that a lot of people are seeing now. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Krista, and she's going to talk about native ads and their integration with SEO.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, the topic of native ads and SEO. Now, this isn't something that we typically talk about. And you think about, native ads and SEO, and they're just from two different worlds. But the way I look at it is that, if we believe and if we know that an integrated digital strategy produces the most significant discoverability of the brand's content, then SEO strategists need to really pay attention to the native ad opportunity. And this makes a whole lot of sense, because I always say you can't do SEO without content and a strong content marketing strategy, and you need content for a native advertising campaign. So the two are very much linked together. In fact, I think the SEO strategy can help inform and drive your native ad campaign. If you think of, having an effective piece of content, call it a blog that's performing well organically, and your audience is finding it, well, why not get that, blog, might be a subset of the blog or whatever that blog topic is about, get it off of your website into a native ad, turn that owned piece of content into a paid piece of content on sites where your audience is hanging out, and hopefully attract more eyeballs back to your web presence. So I think that there's a real marriage of concepts that we can take advantage of between native ads and SEO. And so I like to think of the term SEO, the traditional meaning of it was search engine optimization, and that's just plain old, and we need to move on from that. I like to think of SEO as standing for strategies for earned and owned. And I think of native ads as a way to boost your owned and earned content that we really need to think about. And then if we really think outside of the box, because all of this stuff is changing all of the time, think of a native ad sort of as a backlink. So a backlink not specifically for the Google algorithm that Google's going to give you credit for, but a backlink for your audience. So paid off-site piece of content that's relevant to your audience, that's driving traffic back to your site. And I think that that's where we need to make that connection, SEO, content marketing to native ad, and get it all working together. That's just my opinion. And so we're moving on to trend number 5, and I'll carry on, and then we'll pass it over to Chris. Video ads and vlogs, and I wanted to talk about vlogs, and I think vlogs are really one of the most significant missed opportunities for owned and earned content. So if you're not familiar with what vlogs are, a vlog is a video blog, and I really think that we as digital marketers who are executing on an SEO and content strategy, you really need to just take one extra cycle to create a vlog. And so typically a blog strategy is part of a content marketing strategy. There's a good rhythm and frequency of blog creation. It really doesn't take much to add that one extra cycle. Take the content that blog is about and create a video. And the video does not have to be fancy, but it does have to be optimized. And there are lots of tips in how to optimize a video. In fact, on the gShift website, if you go to our site and into our blog section, you'll find a vlogging tips of a vlog that we actually created. It's a blog about vlogs, or a vlog about blogs, but it gives you all kinds of tips, and it really helps create, one more point in your web presence, one more point in your digital footprint for content that your audience really wants. It expands your digital footprint, and let's face it, people want to consume video. Mobile phones, we'd rather watch video than read the text. And so to have content that you've created that you know your audience wants, accessible in multiple formats, I think is really important for 2015. And then at gShift, we've done some testing around the speed at which a video is indexed by Google. And when that video is proper for the keywords that it is discovered for, that video, once uploaded to YouTube, can be indexed and discovered within 15 minutes of it being loaded, and that's pretty powerful stuff. And then once you have an inventory of videos, you can even turn them into native ads, and so you can do some integration of digital strategies that way. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Chris.
All right, thanks. So, fact, in 1950, right, TV dominated 100% of screen time, and it was all live. In 2014, live TV is only about 50% of the screen time that we have now, meaning more screens means more consumption of video. If you look just at this graph here, you can see that the amount of hours that someone is consuming via screen time is growing significantly year over year. Earlier this year, Acquisio, we surveyed a large number of agencies, and the agencies themselves were saying that the #1 area they're going to experiment in this year is videos. So previously, back in before the kind of explosion of the multiple screens, an average U.S. citizen had historically about 5 hours of TV, and that meant on average about 1 hour of ads, but I would like to call those more commercials. So with the screen time, this really is changing and evolving the opportunity with video ads. So we'll go to the next slide. It's really, video presents this new opportunity. As I mentioned, with the previous live TV scenario, which that was the main screen, you had folks who sort of watched a commercial. And a commercial really doesn't always engage people. And the evolution is sort of now happening. Advertisers now have an opportunity to tell stories. And I have an image here, just for those of you who may have seen it. Budweiser did a follow-up to last year's Super Bowl commercial, and with the scenario where their famous Clydesdale horse had this puppy that they had rescued, and now the puppy's missing again. So leading up to the Super Bowl, the puppy was discovered and or spotted in different places, and they would tweet that out, and they would show short clips about where it was spotted. And ultimately, they were able to tell a story. And they're trying to draw a connection with their brand. And with the growth of mobile video now, as Krista said, folks like to watch video rather than read text, particularly on a mobile device. You now have more opportunity and more screen time hours to tell your story. And what that does is, by telling a story across multiple channels, you no longer have a commercial. You have a short-based film or short-form film, which creates a fan base. And if you look at fan base, those are people who are engaged, right? They choose to watch, they share, they talk about it, and really now you're creating a larger connection with your brand. No matter the device or the size of the campaign, you can tell the story and create that connection with the brand, and now you have an opportunity to do that with video. That's why video's growth in the next few years is going to really be a hockey stick and be significant, and it provides an opportunity, and if you have the resources available to you, a fairly easy opportunity to take advantage of it. So with that, we're going to close out on our trends, and real quickly, if we go to the next slide, just to talk a little bit about Acquisio. So Acquisio was founded in 2003 originally as an agency. Around 2008, the co-founders kind of saw all the pain points that they were having and focused and became passionate about investing in technology to alleviate that. So over the course of Acquisio's evolution, they really focused in on paid search and offering technology to help with that. And through that, our interaction with our agencies and our brands, we have a lot of discussions about what they're doing, what they're seeing, and sort of help us influence where our tool is going to go, but also provide a lot of thought leadership and commentary via our blogs or our papers. So a lot of that information was used today to help provide you insights as well. And I'll turn it over to Krista to talk a little bit about gShift.
Thanks, Chris. And I guess something that folks on the line should know about that we always like to plug in is that Acquisio and gShift are both Canadian technology companies, and we do a lot of joint presentations together. Acquisio is very much on the paid side, gShift's very much on the SEO side, and I'm a founder of gShift. I've known the founders of Acquisio since the beginning of Acquisio time, so it's a good relationship and some good thought leadership. And so if you don't know about gShift, we are a SaaS platform for SEO, social, and content. I founded the company in 2009. It's my third technology company. I'm in love with digital marketing and innovation around it. And I think that the space of SEO, social, and content will continue to collide. And we're excited about where our product is going and the innovation that we're bringing to the table. We monitor thousands and thousands and thousands of web presences on a daily basis at the content level and give you all kinds of rank data at the mobile, local, and global level, as well as backlink data, social signals, and some really interesting new reporting around content performance engagement metrics for content campaigns and owned and earned, white labeled interface reporting, customizable reports, all that good stuff. And we have ongoing webinars that we'd love to see you on. Our next webinar, and you see that down at the bottom of the screen, is webinar-2-17. That's on February the 17th, where it's a general overview of the product. And that brings us to the end. We have one more poll question. I'm actually, John's just going to make it go live here. Would you like any additional information from either one of us? We do have some questions that have been asked that we'll now start to answer, and we're going to publish the results too of those other poll questions. So I'll hand things over to John, and John is our marketing manager here at gShift. So over to you, John.
Thanks very much, Krista and Chris. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to speak to our attendees today. Excellent discussion, excellent ideas and concepts. For those of you listening in, there were quite a few tweets that went out on Twitter, so if you have not checked out the SEO PPC hashtag, by all means do a quick search when we conclude here and get some ideas reinforced that were discussed today. But yeah, as Krista mentioned, there were a few good questions that came in that we're going to have time to do probably 3 of them. So the first one is actually on the surface a very simple question, but it's deceptively complicated, and I'm going to put it out there to Krista, I guess, to start with. But the question was, how do you do mobile SEO?
All right, that's a great question. How do you do mobile SEO? And so when I talk about mobile SEO, I'm talking about really understanding, based on your existing web presence and the content that you have in your web presence, really understanding how you're being discovered in the search engines when somebody searches for your brand or for keywords that represent your brand from a desktop compared to a mobile device. And so quite frankly, the rankings are different, and there's a variety of reasons why the rankings are different for the same keyword from a mobile device compared to a desktop. And it's really up to us as digital marketers to understand those different, right? So it could very well be simply that you're not found at all on a mobile device. Maybe the web presence is so horrible from a mobile perspective that Google just doesn't even want to index it and show it in the mobile results. It could very well be that your results are better in mobile because your competitors are doing really horribly from a mobile perspective. So doing mobile SEO is really about understanding through the data how you're being discovered and for what keywords, and then once you have that information, to do something about it. So if one piece of content is performing well from a desktop, some sort of normal search rankings, but not found at all, this is an extreme example, not found at all on mobile, then you'll want to do something about that. You'll want to take a look at the site architecture, the piece of content, who the competitors are in the top 50 SERP results on both mobile and desktop. So yeah, it's data, understanding data, and then being able to do something about it once you have that information. So that's what I mean by mobile SEO and mobile content marketing.
Great stuff, Krista. Thanks so much. The next question that we had come in is really targeted more towards Chris's area of expertise, which is mobile PPC. And the question that came in was, how do you suggest companies can focus more on mobile-only PPC? Chris, would you like to respond to that, please?
Sure. So I think the number one thing is understanding where your traffic is coming from and segmenting that. A lot of folks that we talk to don't actually understand that. There are a lot of platforms, Acquisio one, even some of the providers will provide your report so you can understand the behavior there. The second piece of that is your ad copy and what's behind the click really needs to be optimized. So the ads itself, when you think about how I said picky, but really kind of how much detail someone's going to go to before they click it, you want to make sure that you're really resonating. Where we could get away with some things on a PC, I don't think you can necessarily get away with that given the mindset of a mobile user. So make sure that your ad copy is very precise, well written, and really kind of conveys that what you're trying to get across. And then behind it, I think if you have a experience that's not optimized for mobile and doesn't really cut to the chase, you're going to lose that person. So you've paid for a click, essentially that is not going to convert for you. So you want to make sure that you have that beyond the click experience optimized for mobile. My suggestion really is a form that is 1 to 2 fields at most, or a click to call. We've seen a lot of for us with our customers, a lot of great experience with using a call tracking vendor. There are lots of them out there, and they all offer different levels of integration. But you can have a unique phone number dedicated to any campaign that you do, and you can track to that. You can send to a certain call center or salesperson or whatever you wish, and then make sure you optimize behind that as well. So there are multiple ways to do that.
Great stuff, Chris. Thanks so much. Just while we wrap up the last question here, I'm just going to display the results from our poll questions, the first of which obviously was regarding what your attendees' plans are for their budgets for this year. And as we can see, the overwhelming majority are intending to increase budgets, which is very positive, very encouraging, and very reflective of what's happening in the industry right now. We definitely see more budgets being devoted all the time to the next poll question that we had was in regards specifically to the mobile area and whether or not that is being incorporated into your strategies for SEO. And we do see that the majority are incorporating mobile into your strategies, but still a significant portion not taking mobile, I guess, maybe as prominently as it should be. So we definitely expect that to shift over the next few months or the next year to be more heavily oriented towards mobile optimized. And the final poll question that we asked in regards to how are you measuring your digital marketing performance, and the results of this one were definitely reflective of what we typically see, where marketers right now are very good at measuring the results of their performance all the way through to the leads and conversion stage, but not so much tying it directly to a revenue or sales figure. And as analytics improve, as marketers are being, exposed to more data points and being able to connect the data points together, we definitely will see that revenue performance measure increasing as we go. But obviously, still definitely some work that needs to be done there. So thanks very much to everybody who attended. We will definitely make sure that all of this information is available in a blog post, and the webinar recording we will make available, as well as all of the answers and stats relating to the poll questions that we asked. So again, we thank you very much. We thank Krista and Chris for producing such great content here today, and we're going to close off on that. And thank you very much for attending, and we would be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Any closing comments, Chris or Krista?
No, just thanks for your time, and if your question did not get answered, we will be addressing it in blog posts, etc. So we'll get to them.
Yeah, thanks for attending, everyone.